Well, as I promised, here is the Kids of Desilu event, which happened in Indian Wells, California on September 8th, where I spoke with Jon Provost, Timmy from Lassie, Larry Mathews, Ritchie from the Dick Van Dyke Show, Tina Cole and Stanley Livingston from My Three Sons, and Keith Thibodeaux, Little Ricky from I Love Lucy. Here we go. Enjoy.
I'm going to start first, I think, with Stan, actually. One thing that I have to say, I noticed that Jon brought him up for that scene. I don't know why, I feel better saying it. He brought him up for that scene from Lassie. But, you know, Stan, you didn't really go into the part about what really happened to you, about when you fell in and you literally, this man almost drowned. So I need him to tell the story. Stan? Oh, yeah. That's okay.
I can't see anybody, so I'm going to stand up.
We're all short up here.
What happened was, the director said, what you need to do is wade out there pretty far out, and then when you get out there, kind of go underneath the water and make sure you're splashing a lot, so it looks like you're drowning and distressed. So I thought, okay. So I got out there, and I kind of ducked down, and then I came back up and started splashing. But what I didn't know was the whole bottom of this pond was filled with mud. It's like goo. And once I got a hold of I think I had my sneakers on, I couldn't get out of it. It was just, and I started splashing, and then all of a sudden, I couldn't get my head up to get any air. So I'm struggling and struggling, just barely, gulping a little bit of air and going down, all because I was standing on my tippy toes to do that scene. And finally, when that guy came out and pulled me, it was like a big pop. I lost my tennis shoes. They stuck to the bottom of the pond. And so I almost drowned.
Thank you, Stan.
Yeah, I know.
That's why I have stunt doubles. They couldn't lose Jon, but they could lose me.
That's Hollywood.
Now that's acting. Let me tell you.
Do you have a question? I have a question.
Yeah. Hold on here. Got it?
This is for Stanley and Jon. So, Jon, you mentioned I talked to you about it a little bit ago, but so for those that don't know, Brian Keith and Fred MacMurray would shoot all their scenes right away, right? And then for 12 weeks, and then they'd leave the rest of the year to do movies. So I want to know, what was it like for you guys shooting like 6 episodes at the same time and everything out of order? And I mean, did it affect you, or how was it? And then Fred's not there and Brian's not there for the rest of the year. I mean, how did that go? It was kind of weird, right?
I didn't know anything.
No.
I mean, I would do one scene and then I'd do another scene, and then I never knew what the whole story was until it was edited.
So it didn't make any difference to you?
My account of it was, it put me under such stress, I never grew.
Thank you.
Tell you what, we've got one other question here, so let's let him.
This is for everyone. Do you guys feel fulfilled with your career? Do you feel fulfilled with your career?
Who are you asking?
Everyone.
We've talked about
Jon.
Are you fulfilled? We'll go down the line.
Okay, what was the question again?
Have you been fulfilled by your career?
Fulfilled, yes.
Mike, Jon.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I don't think I could have done anything else that I could have been more proud of. And, it's very strange, but Lassie was the first series shown in Russia. It was the first American series shown in Egypt. And the reason was because there was no politics involved. It was a family on a farm, a kid and a dog. And, that was the appeal of it. And, but all of our shows, I mean, they had values. The writers cared about what they were giving the public. The producers cared about what they were giving the public. Things have changed. So yeah, I'm very proud of it. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think fulfilled is, yes, absolutely. I mean, but what's, I think, interesting for me in terms of my life, I came from a big family with 7 kids and, you know, Italian Catholic and all this, and I still to this day sit there and kind of can't wrap my head around what I was in, who I was with, the people who I was so fortunate to be, you know, on a show with. Carl Reiner, my God, one of the geniuses of the world. Sheldon Leonard, Danny Thomas, Dick Van Dyke, Mira Tyler Moore, Rosemary, Williamson, it just goes on and on. So, fulfilled, absolutely. So proud of what I did, absolutely. So amazingly just amazed at what I was able to be a part of in my life. And yeah, and to be able to come and do these kind of things where people are really appreciative of what we did and what we brought to the world as an amazing part of entertainment. Yeah, thank you.
Hey, before Tina goes, I would like to add something with Larry about being fulfilled. You know, it's one thing to just work with these people, but he lived his life with these people. I think you need to understand, I mean, he had a really, really close relationship with Rosemary, like very close. He was very close with Mary Tyler Moore. I think you need to add a little bit more and tell them a little bit about Rosemary, please.
Well, thanks, John. Yeah, because it was like you know, the cliche of like, you know, we heard these TV shows, oh, we were a family, it's a cliche thing, but we really were a family. We hung out together. Rosemary and my mom were very close. My family was very close. Her daughter and I were very close. We spent time away from the show doing things together. I spent time at Jerry Paris's house with his kids, you know, spending weekends and doing stuff with them. Dick's kids. I mean, you know, we truly were a bonded kind of family, and I think that's what shows when you look at it and it comes across on the screen in terms of, wow, this is the chemistry with these people was so amazing and was so real because we loved each other. And that made a big difference in it, you know? So, and it's funny, I gotta say one thing about, you asked a question about the shooting so many episodes, you know, at different times with John and Stanley and John. It was very different. Keith and I have a different experience. You know, Desi created the 3-camera live studio audience shooting. That's what Desi created. Keith and I were that. So we filmed our shows in front of a live audience every week with 3 cameras shooting us. And it was truly like a stage play. So we became a very theater-oriented kind of like, you know, performer where it was there. We were, you know, you come on and you have your shot, man, and that's it. And if you blow it, and it's not a good thing. And so it's a different experience being in the 3-camera world. And not that it's any better or worse, it's just a different world as what Stan and Jon and Tina grew up with. But it all means that we were so crafted and so wonderful at our jobs and our talent that we just are so lucky to be able to be here and be part of what we did.
That's great. Thanks, Larry. Tina, yeah, please.
I had a little different perspective just because I was so busy doing the variety side, you know, as well as the acting side. Doing My 3 Sons and doing those, you know, where Fred Murray was absent for most of it, was very hard at first. And there were, like I said, there were many times someone said, oh, do you remember when you did this? And that show, and this happened. Well, we didn't know it was going to be the final show unless we saw it on television. It was only shown once, and then maybe you made it to reruns in the summer, you might have seen it. But there were many shows that I don't even remember. And so we weren't that tight family, and yet we were friendly, but we didn't hang out, we didn't do any of that. But on the other side, I'm working with my own family. The King family was probably the first reality show on television. because there were 40 of us for real. And so that's what we did. I mean, we hung out, and so my cousins today, cousin is way too distant a word for, they are my siblings. And so living and, working with those people. But I guess you said about when you're working as, I was a little bit older than these guys. And
No.
I could have birthed all of you. But, okay, now I lost my train of thought. That's okay. Okay, let me get back to it.
Family.
No, it was family. Okay, shoot.
First reality show.
Yeah, no, I know. Well, see,
Cousins.
cousins, family.
You were older than-
I was older than all of you guys. Anyway, we just did a job, like with the King family. And even my 3 sons, it was a job. We'd go to work, we'd come home, we didn't socialize really. The family did, but it was still a job. We had no idea who we were working with. We had no idea, until I was much older. I thought about all these, like you said, these great artists that we worked with. I mean, they were wonderful, wonderful people.
Thank you.
Well, I guess I like being in show business because, to be honest, this year I've been in show business for 70 years. It's hard to believe, but I guess I can say I was really fulfilled. It's an arc of your career. I always knew I wanted to be in show business. It just was that way. When I was in grade school, I was the kid that was always volunteering to sing, to dance, to be in the little plays, the little musicals. The house that we moved into in Hollywood, a little clapboard house. Remember, we got a TV, and that was new to us. But in the backyard, there was somebody else's TV, I guess, that had lived in that house previous to us. Well, the box was there, but the picture tube was gone. And I got this great idea to entertain my friends, was to get on the other side of the box and bring my cap gun and my puppets and entertain them. So not only was I on TV, I was in TV. And one thing, well, I mentioned that, led to another, and an agent saw me and I started working, and it just worked out. A lot of show business is just luck, being at the right time, right place, right time, and meeting the right people, and getting in the right door, and that's what's been going on for 7 years. I worked, I guess, as an actor primarily till I was about 21, but my three sets 22. But at that point, I had started a production company with a guy that I met in college. So by the time I was like 18, 19, when I wasn't shooting my three sons, I was directing and producing commercials, industrials, music videos, working my way into TV, shot TV pilots, shot a movie, so I've worked, I think, in every format: Super 8 millimeter, 16 millimeter, Super 16, 35 millimeter, 65 millimeter, 70 millimeter, and I actually was in a Cinerama movie, How the West Was Won. So I've shot literally in every format you could shoot in. Just a thought, though. I mean, it's our career, but it's not your career to watch TV, but obviously all of you have and enjoyed the shows that we were in. But there's something special about that, and it's something to think about. The reason I think you people just, love these shows, it's the shows you love, but there was something else involved in that. When you were watching these shows in the 50s and 60s, you were at home watching probably on one TV set that was in your home with your mom and your dad and all your family members gathered around. And I think that created something in us. There's this, burning or longing for that period of time when that happens. People that watch TV now, pull that out, you go in your own room, you sit there alone. But we all did that with our families, and including mine. funny, you know. I was on TV, but at home we had one TV. It was a black and white TV. We never got a color TV until about 1985. I think my parents got it. And the only reason they got it was my brother Barry, he played Ernie on the show. He went on a TV show and won the color TV set. And gave it to my parents. So that was the first color TV we ever knew about. But yeah, I didn't realize my 3 sons had turned into color because we had some black and white TV. But yeah, I've done all the things I've done in my life, you know, from producing to directing, editing, writing, acting. So I've been very fulfilled. I can't think of anything, you know, that I haven't done yet. It would just be reduplicating things that I have done. Hopefully I'll continue to do that. 74, I'm still out there. Anybody want to hire me?
Awesome. I'm blessed to be here, blessed to be with these compatriots, and thank you for interviewing us. Thank you.
It's an honor to interview these people. By the way, I gotta say one thing. They are all so humble. I mean, let's be really honest here. I think we need to give them a good ovation. These are talented people. I mean, every one of them is like, oh, it's just a job, whatever. I mean, how do the emotions, these people are incredible.
Thank you.
You deserve it.
Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Carolyn, as everyone has already talked about. What a wonderful night this has been. And, I was actually asked about fulfilled, the question, the original question. Were we fulfilled, and how fulfilled were we? I started out before the Lucy show playing the drums when I was 2 years old. And then I ended up on the Horace Heights show, which was like this big band show. It was called the Swift Premium Hour in the 50s, before the Lucy show. Ended up in Sherman Oaks on a hiatus. That's when the audition for the Lucy show came. So because I played the drums at an early age, before professionally, Lucy and them looked, at me when I went on the set. They said, well, he looks like us, or looks like Desi. So I played the drums for him and blew everyone away. Sheldon Leonard was there, the big producer. And Desi came over and started jamming with me on the floor time. And he said, I think we found a little Ricky. So I was signed to a 7-year contract with Desilu in 1956 when I was I guess I was 5 years old. And I remember after a certain episode, it might have been that episode that you saw tonight, that I was driving back to the valley from the Hollywood going to the studio, where they shot the Lucy show. And I asked my dad, I said, Dad, and after the shows went well, and being in a live context like Larry was, it was like a variety show. It was like there was song and dance, and there was situation comedy with all that. But I asked him, I said, Dad, I just was thinking really deep, and I said, why did God pick me to be little Ricky? I asked him like a kind of a deep question, I guess, and he kind of was driving along, and he said, well, Keith, he said, God's got a purpose for you. And I just pondered that and just drove home, went along with my life. But I was blessed, to be able to know the Arnazes came here to the Indian Wells when it was first built by Desi and shot, hit some golf balls out there and stayed with Lucy and Desi. One Christmas, they asked me to join them here in Palm Springs. They had like 4 homes. They had a Del Mar house on the beach. They had a ranch in Corona. They had the Beverly Hills home. And then they had the Palm Springs home, which was an incredible home. But Palm Springs was the most boring place as a kid for me to read together. It was my least favorite place of all. And it was really heartbreaking for me to spend Christmas away from my family for that one time, but it was an incredible experience anyway. But all that said, you know, knowing them, growing up with their kids, being best friends with Lucy and Desi Jr., kind of like a brother to them, like some of these relationships here that we all had. Being fulfilled, you know, do we feel fulfilled? Well, I think being fulfilled means to accept those things. To accept your accomplishments, any kind of accomplishments that you might have. Accept them. And as little as they are, or big as they are, accept them. And know that you have a purpose. And know that God's got a purpose for you. And know that your fulfillment, I don't feel like I'm fulfilled yet. I feel like there's so much more for each one of these guys up here. There's so much, I mean, we all do different things, different dreams. It doesn't matter how old you are. You don't have to just retire. You know, I don't know anybody in the Bible that retired. I mean, it's just, you know. So, I don't think you have to think in those terms, but there was a point in my life when I wasn't fulfilled, and I didn't enjoy my life, and that was part of my life that I got into drugs and just mental problems and emotional problems, and really the thing that brought me out was God. I went back to my belief in God, and I humbled myself and I gave my life to Him, and He delivered me. And I would not be here. I would not be alive. I would have been in a mental institution. And I would have been like one of these stories that you hear about kids. Johnny's had some hard times here. As probably some of these have had some issues with things, but all in all, I'm blessed. And I'm highly favored. I've been married to my wife for 48 years, my lovely wife, Kathy. And I have my favorite daughter here is Tara. And she's our only daughter. That's why she's my favorite daughter. And then I have my favorite grandson, Bryson. 10 years old. And he's my only grandson. So we are truly blessed and I have nothing else to say.
Oh, you will.
All I gotta say is amen. And yes, on September 27th, September 25th, I will celebrate 27 years clean and sober. And I do have God, my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, to thank for that. And the program of the 12-step programs of recovery. And so I'm a 12-step counselor today, and I've been doing that for 25 years. So.
Johnny, well, why don't you hold on to the mic for a second? I think everyone here would enjoy this story. You had told me this during the interview when you were working with Brian Keith, kind of like the first time when he showed up, and you know, basically was like, hey, we started throwing, you know, baseball around with you a little bit and stuff like that.
Yeah, when I did the film, The Russians Are Coming, The Russians Are Coming, and Brian Keith, well, my mother and I were making, I'm one of 8 children, and my mother had not had the last 2 yet. But we were on the set, and Mom was making boy cheese sandwiches, because I was not going to have a girl cheese sandwich. And Brian came to the door and knocked on it, and he said, "Can Johnny Whitaker come out to play?" And so I I came out and threw the ball and had a fun time, and that's how basically one of the reasons I got the role of Jody in Family and Friends.
I want to pass it all the way down back to Jon Provost. Jon, I think it's interesting too. You're another interesting case where you weren't just like going to the job and it was great. You were there with the dog and all that, and you were a great actor. You also spent a lot of time with Mr. Whitaker, isn't that correct?
Yes, when I got the part of Timmy, I didn't know my grandfathers. They had all passed, but I had grandmothers. And so Rudd became like my surrogate grandfather on the set, and just continually. And sometimes people had asked, does Lassie come? Could you bring Lassie home? Well, no, Lassie back in the day was insured for $1 million. So, I could go home with Lassie, but Lassie couldn't come home with me. So, long story short, Rudd, he had a 60-acre ranch out in San Canyon country when there was nothing out there. And I would go any other pond and we could go fishing and stuff. And so, just to get out of LA, working 5 days a week, 10 hours a day, 9 months out of the year. And so I'd go and spend the weekend on Rudd's ranch. And it was really a good way for me to relax, but it was also a good bonding experience for me and Lassie because we weren't working, we were playing, we were fishing, we were hiking, we were just, being a boy and his dog and not taking command. And so, yeah, Rudd played he was a tough guy, he was rough, but he had a heart of gold. And he treated me like he treated his dogs. Every Lassie lived 14, 15, 16 years old. For a large dog, that's really incredible. It's because the way they were treated and how they were fed. And so I learned a lot from Rudd. I learned respect for the animals from Rudd. We worked with alligators to zebras on Lassie, everything. And other dogs and cats and what have you. And I saw all these other trainers, and I never saw one like Rudd. And Rudd's son and all his 2 sons were also assistant trainers, as was his head man, Sam Williams. And they were super, super special. And, just loved him and the way he cared for his dogs. And one thing real quick, when I started the show, 7, little kid, big dog. And so Rudd said, look, he goes, don't bug Lassie. He said, I don't want you pulling his tail, I don't want you riding him, I don't want, just work with him. And if you do this the first year, for your 8th birthday, I'll give you a Lassie puppy. So I worked like a dog that first year to make sure I did exactly what I screwed up a few times, but it was okay, it worked out. And so for my 8th birthday, I was given a male, a Lassie puppy, who I named Rudd.
If you're interested in seeing an event like this in person, Carolyn Peterson is putting on an evening with the cast from Chips. Eric Estrada, Larry Wilcox, Robert Pine, Brody Greer, Paul Link, Bruce Penhall. Dinner and cocktails. I'll be hosting the question and answer portion of the night. You can see the flyer here. I'll also post the link to it in the description below the video. All right, let's go back to the Kids of Desilu event.
So, Keith, I'm number one. I'm very proud to play with you tonight. So, tell me. You've still got the drum chops. How did you keep them up? Tell me about your musical journey too.
Well, after I did the Andy Griffith Show too, I played on 13 episodes of the Andy Griffith, playing Ron Howard's best friend, Johnny Paul Jason. And in fact, my wife and I are going to Mayberry Days in North Carolina, which will be at the end of this month. So we've done that many times. And so my parents separated when I was 15 years old. And we were living in the valley at that point. And I did things like Hazel, Farmer's Daughter. I was with Davy Jones and Farmer's Daughter before he was even in the Monkees. And we played a song called I'm Gonna Buy Me a Dog. And anybody remember that song by the Monkees? Well, we played it on The Farmer's Daughter as a band before he was on the Monkees. He was getting ready to do that show about 3 months later, and he was telling us about it. But soon after my parents separated, moved back to Louisiana, which is where I'm from, on occasion. Hey! Are you from Louisiana?
Yes, sir.
Where? Oh, New Orleans. All right. So, moving back to Louisiana, I went to high school, started playing in little high school bands, garage bands. I had a little local band called the Persian Market. We had a local hit. We went to Biloxi, met this group called David and the Giants, who at that point signed with Capitol, had some regional hits. And I started playing with David and the Giants when I was 19 years old. I moved to Mississippi from Louisiana, left home after getting into drugs and all the stuff that I did. And that's kind of what started my journey. And then after I came to faith in the Lord Jesus Christ, I witnessed to the band, who were a rock band, about Jesus. I said, there's more to the Bible than what we've been led to believe. And eventually, long story short, they all came to faith. We became a Christian rock band in the 1980s, traveled all over the U.S., went to England, Jamaica, and we had a reunion concert back around 2009 with the band, and we've been playing ever since. So we're actually going to record next week in St. Louis at David's studio a new album, but we play concerts, we do, I've still played all these years. I mean, that's what kind of my mind was when I started playing drums when I was 2 years old. That's who I was. When I left California, acting was sort of like cut off, because here I go from the land of the Beach Boys to the land of the alligators in the swamps. And it was a whole different mindset. So that's kind of my journey. That I still, that's who I deep down, that's who I am as a drummer. That whatever talents you have, that's me.
Yes, the gentleman in the hat, please.
And that's a great hat.
It is a great hat, by the way. And your wife has a great hat. I know that we mentioned you spent a lot of time with Jerry Paris, in his house and stuff like that. With Dick Van Dyke and Mary Tyler Moore when offset, would you see them, or what was that relationship like?
No, during our hiatus we didn't really see them. It was kind of more during the season that we would see each other, and we spent. There was a restaurant called the Brown Derby in Hollywood, and after we would, because again we shot live audience, and Tuesday nights, and at the end of the nights the whole cast and crew would go to the Brown Derby. We'd just hang out, and the adults would have their drinks. I would have a chocolate sundae, because my mother would let me do that. And so during the season is when we spent more time together. Because again, doing sitcoms is different than what a lot of the other guys, folks here are used to. It's a pretty, I don't want to say easy, but just a very regimented. It's like, here's your rehearse day, here's your rehearse day, here's your block and shoot day, here's your block and shoot day, here's your shoot before live audience day, and then just the next week you start all over again. Here's your script, here's your rehearsal. So during the season is when we would spend most time together. Now with Rosemary and Jerry, yes, during the off season we would do things together and I would see them. With the rest of the cast members and Maury and even Greg and Maury's son, we would see each other and just kind of do things in between the shows as we were shooting them in the middle of the season.
Tell us, John, could Larry tell us about that scene with the woodpecker and pecking at his head?
That would be perfect.
Is that what were you going to ask that? What were you going to ask before we said that?
That definitely was one of my questions. But
I was also curious about, I know that Mary Tyler Moore at one point kind of really called you out, like how special you were to her.
Well, Mary was literally like another mother in a lot of ways to me. It was great. I was so happy to do the Dick Van Dyke Show because people said, you know, I came from a big family with my parents. It was like, I was great. It was like, wait a minute, I can go be away from my parents and away from my brothers and sisters and do something different and pretend I'm another character. I'm in. It was great, trust me. And Mary at one point in her book said that during the filming of the Dick Van Dyke Show, I felt more like a son to her than her own son. And because he was doing other things and Mary was doing her career. When we did the revisited show, the Dick Van Dyke Revisited show, I had, my scene was with Carl Reiner doing a phone scene. You know, he was, Alan Brady calls, you know, Ritchie and says, hey, where's your parents? I want to talk to them. And there was a scene where we went back and forth on a phone conversation. And Carl and Mary both had said to me, and Dick was a master at this, you know, doing the like, on the phone, like, oh, well, you know, but there's nobody on the other side of the phone. You're just doing this, you know, as yourself and trying to get the timing of everybody else doing it. And so one time, at the point we were doing the show, Mary came up to me and she says, I'm needing to tell you something. She goes, you are brilliant at what you've done with this. This is the hardest thing to do as an actor, is to do a conversation on the phone with nobody on their side and pull it off perfectly. She goes, you're perfect. And I was like, well, Mary, thanks. I mean, I try and do my best. She goes, no, you don't understand. You're brilliant. She goes, I am so proud of you and the man you've become, what you've done with your life, and you haven't gone down the slippery slope of like just losing, you know, being, you know, just doing crazy things like a lot of child stars do. And she goes, and I'm so proud of you. And my mother happened to walk by at the same time. She says, you know, and your son is the most wonderful person, and I'm really proud of him, and you should be too, to my mother. You know, it was like, so that was pretty cool. The woodpecker thing was very funny because being a germaphobe, which I still am, they told me like, we're gonna, you know, the woodpecker's gonna have to peck your head at the end. You saw the clip where you're doing over there, right? And I'm like, no. I was a scared little child, and I'm like, no, I don't want that. And they go, no. I said, how are you gonna make that happen? They said, we're gonna put a worm on your head. I said, no, God, you can't put this slimy thing on my head. No, and I was freaking out. My mom was like, calm down, it's gonna be fine. And they're like, and Carl Reiner came up to me and said something, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this. And so they said, it's not gonna be a problem. Calm down. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it. So what people don't know is, at the beginning of that scene when I walked in with the pith helmet on, right? The worm was on my head, because we're doing live television. So I'm like, you mean you're gonna have this thing on my head through the whole scene? And I gotta do this, and then I gotta wait for it, and they go, you'll be fine. And it was great because they put it on, they put the pith helmet on, and I really didn't feel anything, and at the end of it all, I leaned down and the woodpecker, boom, jumped on my head, took the worm out, and I was like, well, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was, really. But yeah, it was kind of one of those child things where you're like, I'm a baby, I don't want to do this stuff, right? And I was like, okay, I'm okay. It's not a problem. It all worked out really well for that too, so yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, we can pass that mic back down. Obviously, I mean, we saw you drum time. By the way, was he fantastic or what? I mean, just incredible. And I love this scene that we saw, but then there's, you know, the famous one, you know, scene that you have with Desi for Babalu. Can you tell us a little bit about what you recall of that experience of actually doing that? Because, I mean, it's almost, you can watch that now and still be just blown away.
Yeah, that was something that, you know, I was a trap set player, you know, regular drum set like this. And I didn't play bongos or congos like Desi, it was more of that. And so he didn't think that, it was something that I hadn't done before, play the bongos. And when, if you play the bongos, drummers, it hurts your hands. You have to get them, conditioned in order to play this, hit the drum with your hands so that it sticks. So he had his drummer in his Desi orchestra, Ricky Ricardo orchestra, give me some pointers on bongos and how to play it and stuff. So the guy, nice guy, gave me a couple lessons, or just did it one time actually. And he said, he's fine, let him just go on and do, the show. So I did the show, Babalu, and you have to learn some little dance moves. I had to learn, and if you notice in the Babalu episode, Lucy people, I start looking up when I'm playing the bongos at a certain point, because Desi said, when I get to this certain point, you gotta look up with me, like just mirror, do what I do. So I actually did it before he did it. I was anticipating this thing I had to put my head up, and really putting my head up meant it's a song, Babalu is this song. I thought it was just some kind of goofy name for Spanish, some crazy Cuban thing. But it's actually a Cuban voodoo god, which is worshipped by the Santeria religion. And so that was what the song was really about. And so that's what was happening. And that was one of those pressure-filled episodes that I had to sing. I mean, it was so, I got to one point where, ole, 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 Desi's going that. And then I got this little voice and it goes, ole, ole, ole. And then it was just like cracked, cracked voice, and like, whoa, that's in a different register, then went into the key. But, people ask me, would you recreate that? But I just will not do that song because of that background, that history that I found out later on in life. Kind of like I got hypnotized one time, which I didn't know about. But I started forgetting my lines and started stuttering. And so Lucy had a hypnotist come in my dressing room, and the old proverbial watch.
Really?
Yeah, I was like behind scenes with this man, and it was like I forgot completely about it. I didn't even know that happened to me. And years later, my mother, once we moved to Louisiana, said, what did that man say to you or do in the dressing room? Because they said, don't ask me what happened in there. And she said, because it was something about, he said something about a watch going back and forth. And so he actually, did a hypnotic session on me. So I thought that was kind of weird. I had speech therapy at one point, and during the show, and I had about a couple weeks off that Lucy gave me. Thought I needed to have some time off because of the stress of the show. And just being with Desi and Lucy about their relationship, their marital tension and passion that they brought out in their marriage, I really felt these things as a kid. Even at their home, I'd hear the fights and all that, but all in all, that's Babalu. Because my wife and I, we love Pluto. That streaming, anybody know what Pluto is? It's you can watch 24 Hours Lucy, Andy Griffith, Dick Van Dyke, probably Mathews and all, Family Guy. Dick, it's really, we feel better watching like Andy Griffith, and when I see myself on television, it's like, wow, like this tonight, I was thinking, wow, I didn't, that's cool, I didn't see that part in that particular way, because, as we grow older, we see things in a different way, when we were kids. So, yeah, it's interesting.
I was talking with one of the people at my table tonight, and you know, you can get coached and you can learn and you can do things and you can do, like you said, tears in your eyes, stuff like that. But you have it in your blood or you don't. Okay, you know, and I don't care what it is, any profession, right? As a musician, it's there or it's not, and you can bring it out. As an actor, as a performer, as something, it's just kind of in your blood, and you just take it and run with it as much as you can. For me, with that episode, it was Sheldon Leonard who knelt down when my mom said, I gotta cry in this episode. I said, can't do that. And my mom said, go talk to Mr. Leonard. And Sheldon kneeled in front of me and told me this horrible story about his dog had been killed in this horrible accident. And I was in tears in 2 seconds, and I went on the stage, and it was perfect. But again, it's part of who you are. It's all of us. It's in our blood. It's just innate. It just comes, and that just, you know, we're just lucky to have that as part of our DNA at that point.
I'm sorry, yeah, the establishment, we have to end this, so I'm really sorry, I could go on till midnight.
Can we get one more question? We had this lady had the microphone.
Oh, okay, sorry.
And might as well go.
Last question.
Last question, okay.
The money that you used to get, do you remember having to have a piggy bank, or do you remember thinking, well, did I make money, or where did it go? Or did your
I made
parents
lots of
take
money,
it?
but my allowance was a quarter a week. You know, until I got to be about 16, Dad, I gotta buy gas for my car.
My son, Wally, started with the King family at 9 months old. And when he was like 5, we were on the road, and he saw a muscular dystrophy, some little thick jar, you know, on the restaurant counter. And he looked at my mom and he said, Grandma, how much do I make? And she said, well, 50 cents. And he said, well, may I have my 50 cents now? And she said, well, sure. And he made a lot more than that. But he said, yeah. And he put it in the muscular dystrophy little jar. Because it just, yeah, it was just.
We didn't have a concept. We did what we did because we loved it, and that's what we were fortunate enough to do. But money wasn't in our DNA, in our making, our DNA. It just wasn't.
Wish we had it now.
Yeah, really.
Well, the last episode of the Out of Lucy show, I was out of a job. My dad said, you know, you're out of a job. And I said, I couldn't even understand that. But I really understood it well when I ended up going to the unemployment line with the other unemployed, you know, adult actors. I'm sitting there and I'm getting like $65, you know, a week or whatever it was. And it was like, it was the most horrible experience. I mean, getting $65 and then having my dad and mom take that, you know. Well, you can't have that. And I was like, so, anyway, praise God anyway.
I think we're going to have to wrap it up because of the facility. Let's have another round of applause for these people, please. Jon Provost, Larry Mathews, Tina Cole, Stanley Livingston, Thibodeaux, Johnny Whitaker. Come on.
Hope you enjoyed the video as much as I did. Please subscribe and then hit the notification bell also so that you will be notified when I have my next episode. And as well, go into my channel and see the interviews with each of these people. They're all terrific. Jon Provost, Larry Mathews, Tina Cole, Stanley Livingston, Thibodeaux, and Johnny Whitaker. They're all there. Enjoy.